Good morning. Will the Standing Committee on Crown Corporations please come to order? Before the committee can proceed with the business before it, it must elect a chairperson. Are there any nominations? Emily Loisel.
I'd like to nominate Emily Moyes.
Emily Moyes has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Emily Moyes, will you please take the chair?
Good morning. I would like to announce that there's going to be a substitution. MLA Mike Mraz will be substituting for MLA Jim Malloway. Our next item of business is the election of the vice chairperson. Are there any nominations? MLA Mraz.
I'd like to nominate MLA Loisel.
Are there any other?
Emily Loisel has been nominated.
Sorry. MLA Loisel has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, MLA Loisel is elected vice chairperson. This meeting has been called to consider the annual report of Efficiency Manitoba for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023. Before I begin, I would like to remind everyone that the questions and comments must be put through the chair. Are there any suggestions from the committee as to how long we should sit this morning?
3 hours?
Mr. Nisbet?
Sorry, 3 hours?
It has been suggested that we sit for 3 hours. Are there any other suggestions?
Is that agreed?
Sorry, is that agreed upon by the committee? It has been agreed by the committee that we will sit for a total of 3 hours, and so ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to make an opening statement, and would they please introduce the officials in attendance? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. It is my pleasure to be here with you today as we discuss Efficiency Manitoba's annual report for the fiscal year ending March 31, 2023. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, and on behalf of our Manitoba government, I'd like to start by honoring the sacredness and the importance of this land and of the ancestors that once walked here where we are sitting today. The Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Dene, the Dakota, the Métis, the Inuit, and the Anishinaabe nations who lived on these lands that we now know as Manitoba, home to all treaty people. The reason we make this acknowledgement is to remind us of our treaty histories and the true history of these lands, the original homelands of those nations, which we all now have the great privilege of calling home today. I'd like to welcome Colleen Kureluk, the CEO of Efficiency Manitoba, and thank her for her exceptional leadership and performance in that role. It's been an honor to serve as the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister responsible for Efficiency Manitoba since October of last year. As we've settled into the role, it's been exciting to see just how much Efficiency Manitoba has accomplished in pursuing their mandate of achieving long-term electricity and natural gas savings in our province. These programs and rebates they provide to homes and businesses and communities have made energy efficiency upgrades easier and more affordable for all Manitobans to pursue. That comes with many benefits, from improving energy affordability to mitigating the climate crisis that we are facing. An energy transition is imminent in Manitoba. In an effort to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, we recognize that additional demand will be placed on our electricity grid. This means prioritizing energy efficiency, and the work of Efficiency Manitoba is now more important than ever. When we came into government in October, we were elected on an ambitious and achievable mandate. And we know Efficiency Manitoba will play an integral role in the transition away from fossil fuels here in Manitoba. Efficiency Manitoba has made significant impacts already, from helping homeowners and businesses to save money and reduce their carbon emissions, to reducing water usage and making the switch to energy-efficient lighting and appliances. There have been so many positive advancements and achievements already. The reality is, we quite simply have not done enough to meet our environmental, climate, and efficiency targets. And although we've seen an uptake in programs in this reporting period compared to the previous year, we know there is even more incredible innovation and ingenuity to tap into to make our homes, communities, and energy sources more efficient. I want to commend the work of Efficiency Manitoba, which they've accomplished since 2020 and in this most recent reporting year specifically, despite a less than ambitious vision put forward by the previous government during their mandate. And as we look ahead, our government is serious about supporting Manitobans in their adoption of clean energy choices, helping them make important green investments into their homes, and supporting the infrastructure to ensure we make the best use of our precious environmental resources for generations to come. We will continue to work with industry leaders, community, and the best science available to meet the technology needs of the moment and into the future. This work will be achieved by the expertise of the Efficiency Manitoba executive team, board, and the staff. Efficiency Manitoba's results show their program participation and incentive payments are increasing each year, and they are well positioned to meet the long-term legislated energy and saving targets and take on an increasingly important role as we address the energy transition. Our government looks forward to working with Efficiency Manitoba, and we are committed to supporting their efforts in helping Manitobans save energy, reduce their emissions, and creating a sustainable future for everyone who has the privilege of living and working here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister Schmidt. Does the critic for the official opposition have an opening statement? Mr. Nesbitt?
I do.
Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning to everyone in the room here. Thank you very much for coming in this morning, and I want to thank the Minister for her opening remarks and for introducing the CEO of Efficiency Manitoba. We're certainly here today to discuss the 2022-23 annual report and learn more about Efficiency Manitoba's future plans as well. So I'd like to introduce my colleagues here. I have Mr. Doyle Panuke, the MLA for Turtle Mountain with me, and Mr. Abi Khan, the MLA for Fort White. So with that, I think we're ready to delve into the...
Sorry, Mr. Nesbitt, I just want to remind you that we don't use first names at the committee. Thank you. Go ahead.
So with that being said, then, I think we're ready to begin questioning.
Thank you very much. Do the representatives from Efficiency Manitoba wish to make an opening statement? Ms. Kurluk?
Thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today to share how Efficiency Manitoba has progressed with its mandate of helping Manitobans save energy and money in the 22-23 fiscal year. And first, I'd like to start by thanking Minister Schmidt for the land acknowledgement. At Efficiency Manitoba, land acknowledgements have become a regular practice of mindfulness, which has contributed to an organization where we all recognize our collective responsibility to uphold and strengthen the relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in the spirit of respect, remembrance, and reconciliation. Before I start my remarks, which will cover a select few highlights from our fiscal year ended March 31st, 2023, I would like to mention that it was through a determined and focused attention to our mandate and vision that resulted in Efficiency Manitoba accomplishing a great deal in our short time in existence following our official commencement in 2020. These accomplishments would not have been possible without the relentless commitment and passion demonstrated by our employees for the work that we do. Behind the scenes, our talented team works tirelessly to ensure customer satisfaction remains paramount. From swiftly processing incentives to providing technical guidance, their efforts are instrumental in our organization's success. Our staff, comprised of industry experts, possess a remarkable ability to adapt and innovate, consistently enhancing our programs and offers to better serve our community. Their passion and expertise are the driving force behind our continued growth and impact, and we extend our heartfelt appreciation to each member of our team for their contributions. As we continue to invest in our programs and provide incentives to even more participating Manitobans, Manitoba businesses and communities, our total investments in energy efficiency have been increasing every year. In fact, we provided nearly $30 million in rebates to customers in 22-23, representing a 16% increase over 21-22. And it's encouraging to see that Manitobans are increasingly understanding the value of investing in energy efficiency. Contributing largely to this mindset, behavioral shifts, and enabling action are Efficiency Manitoba's efforts to build awareness of the benefits of energy efficiency, along with our diverse portfolio of over 40 programs and rebates to help Manitobans afford and make the choice to invest in energy savings upgrades. And our efforts are paying off. Brand awareness of Efficiency Manitoba was measured at 58% in 2023, which is up from 33% in 2020 and 53% in 2022. Our 2022-23 energy savings results are published in our annual report supplement. The total electricity savings of the portfolio, accounting for all sectors that we serve, reached 83% of our legislative target of 1.5%, while portfolio natural gas savings were 91% of our target of 0.75%. These savings were achieved while expending 63% of the overall budget, meaning that energy savings were achieved cost-effectively and in a fiscally responsible manner. It should be noted that the Efficiency Manitoba Act provides for annual shortfalls and surpluses in energy savings will be carried forward in accordance with the cumulative 15-year savings targets. Part of our important work is continually assessing our portfolio programs and making adjustments to maximize savings across all customer sectors. As a result, we launched 5 new offers in 22-23 fiscal year, including rebates on air source heat pumps and solar technology, financial and technical assistance for residential and commercial deep energy retrofits, and in-suite appliance rebates for multi-unit residential buildings. We made enhancements to existing offers, including expanding the eligibility criteria for insulation upgrades via our Energy Efficiency Assistance Program and First Nations Insulation and Direct Install Program to encourage even greater participation. And finally, we prioritized engaging in mutually beneficial partnerships and collaborating with other Manitobans as we built out our offers and reached more homes, businesses, and communities. And these included meeting with our Indigenous Energy Efficiency Working Group, focusing on our ongoing partnership with the Manitoba Métis Federation, which helps Red River Métis citizens access energy efficiency upgrades, working with Raven Indigenous Capital Partners via a community-driven outcomes model for the installation of ground source heat pumps in First Nations communities, and joining forces with neighborhood renewal corporations to make energy efficiency accessible to their local residents. And a great example of one of our unique and successful offers is our Innovation Fund. We provide organizations with funding for pilot projects and partnerships to reduce common adoption barriers to emerging energy-efficient technologies and strategies that can save electricity or natural gas. And as of the end of the 22-23 fiscal year, we committed funding to 11 projects valued at $1.8 million. And these projects range from the construction of a green community housing to the development of a new composite roofing insulation system to ethnoculturally targeted energy efficiency education programming across a variety of media channels. And these projects show that the creative and inspirational new ways in which Manitobans can, with extra support and encouragement, rise to the challenge of bringing innovation to life, which ultimately supports Efficiency Manitoba's mandate of significant long-term energy savings for our province. To aid in the development of future programs, we initiated a demand-side management market potential study in 2022. A range of market achievable energy savings estimates for multiple technologies across all customer segments formed the basis of the study and included an assessment of existing energy efficient technologies and those that have a potential viability for the Manitoba market. Another benefit of this study was its integrated approach, and this is the first time an assessment of this type had been completed in the province. So beyond the components specifically completed for Efficiency Manitoba on energy efficiency, fuel switching, and renewable distributed generation, the study included options for market potentials outside of our mandate in the areas of electric vehicles, demand response, and fuel switching to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from non-natural gas fossil fuels. Efficiency Manitoba partnered with both the province and Manitoba Hydro, who had interest in those additional areas of study. The completion of the market potential study in August 2022, alongside our deep understanding of the unique Manitoba market, will allow us to develop our next efficiency plan in a manner that's innovative, informed, robust, and cost-effective. In her opening remarks, Minister Schmidt highlighted an important point that can't be overstated. The energy landscape is shifting in Manitoba to address the climate crisis. As interest in reducing emissions from building, heating, and transportation increases, Manitoba's electric grid will face additional requirements, which will necessarily come at a cost to all Manitobans. Energy efficiency as the least cost approach to managing energy needs has always been important, but it's even more important now than ever before. As the energy transition progresses, Manitobans have an opportunity to manage their consumption and make meaningful difference in the impacts of our energy grid and the future infrastructure build-out requirements. And beyond this future-oriented thinking, there are direct and immediate benefits from implementing energy efficiency. Lower energy bills, improved home comfort, increased business competitiveness, training and employment for the many Manitobans and businesses who currently work or have the future opportunity to work alongside of us in getting energy efficiency into homes and businesses across the province. And as we work this year to build our 25 to 2028 efficiency plan, we're excited to continue driving participation, positive change, and fostering an increased sense of responsibility toward a more sustainable and energy-conscious Manitoba. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my opening remarks, and I welcome any questions that may be directed.
Thank you very much. The floor is now open for questions. Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the CEO for those opening comments. Could the CEO please tell us what Efficiency Manitoba's official mandate and goals were for 22-23?
Ms. Kurlik.
So our mandate for Efficiency Manitoba was outlined in our Efficiency Manitoba Act was to reduce energy consumption in natural gas and electricity. It was to defer the infrastructure investments that would need to be made by Manitoba Hydro. It was to pursue additional savings beyond our savings targets if those savings could be deemed cost effective. And it was to involve the private sector in delivering our efficiency programs.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this is addressed to the CEO, have there been any discussions with the new government about a new mandate for Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Kurlik.
So, Mr. Chair. So we obviously have been following the new government as they've come into power and have definitely seen that they have an interest in refreshing what Efficiency Manitoba is doing. And I think that was made clear in Minister Schmidt's remarks that there's going to be an enhanced vision for Efficiency Manitoba, and we look forward to receiving that.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for the minister then, and hearing from the CEO that there are changes being proposed here, are there any plans to update the Efficiency Manitoba Act to expand the Efficiency Manitoba's mandate? And if so, what is the timeline for that?
Minister Schmidt.
Yeah, we know it's the case that, in fact, Efficiency Manitoba has been seeking an expanded mandate, and our government is prepared to act on that request. We are currently working with Efficiency Manitoba and our Climate and Green Implementation Office to review the act. We understand that there are some hindrances within the current regulatory framework, and we are, as I said, actively reviewing the regulations, the legislation, and do have a plan to make some changes.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the minister. I'd like to ask the CEO to explain to the committee how Efficiency Manitoba is funded.
Ms. Kurlik.
Per the Efficiency Manitoba Act, Efficiency Manitoba's operations are funded through Manitoba Hydro, less any funding that we would get from any other sources.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does the federal government contribute any funding to the operations and programs of Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Kurlik.
Yes, the federal government, through the Low Carbon Economy Leadership Fund, approved an application that was made by the province of Manitoba to fund half of our natural gas efficiency plan. So that was back in 2019, and I think the signing of that agreement occurred in about 2021. So of course, the Low Carbon Economy Leadership Fund is specifically for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. So the funding was restricted to the gas component of our plan, given that electricity is largely GHG free.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that answer. Can you tell me or tell the committee how much federal money came into the province here in the 22-23 fiscal year for Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yeah, so in 2023, we have accrued revenue of about $9.7 million that will be coming from the federal government. And the process for receiving that funding is that the agreement was signed with the province, so the province receives it first and then remits it to Efficiency Manitoba. And then per our legislation, we remit that to Manitoba Hydro. And so the gas ratepayers that essentially paid into the low carbon economy fund through the carbon charge are the ones that are narrowly receiving that benefit through that return to Manitoba Hydro gas ratepayers.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is a question to the CEO. Regarding the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group, who are the stakeholders involved and what are they advising Efficiency Manitoba to do?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yeah, so the Energy Efficiency Advisory Group is a legislative stakeholder group that has been working with Efficiency Manitoba since 2019. So they were instrumental in helping us form our very, very first efficiency plan that went through the Public Utilities Board hearing in late 2019, early 2020. And the members of those group that had been invited to attend were Manitoba Kiiwetinoong MKO, SCO, Southern Chiefs Organization, AMC, Association of Manitoba Municipalities, the Manitoba Métis Federation, we had Green Action Centre, Manitoba Industrial Power Users Group, and then we had a Keystone Agricultural Producers, and then we had a ex officio member, which was the Expert Advisory Committee for the Climate and Green Plan. And the input that those members would have given to us is, different ideas on how we could enhance our plan to make sure that members of their communities were seen in our plan and could access the plan. So for example, Keystone Agricultural Producers had a hard time seeing where agricultural customers fit because we have residential and commercial customers. And so as a result of that input, we specifically made a component of our plan that's addressing agricultural customers specifically. So it ranged from basically how to reach community members to how to better enhance our programs or where to offer perhaps new programs.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I just want to ask the CEO also, when it comes to the stakeholders, what direction does the corporation should take based on their advisory to the Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Kurlik?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I ask the member opposite to repeat that question?
Yeah, sorry for that. Mr. Chair, I just want
Mr. Panook?
based on the stakeholders, the advisory committee, what is the direction that Efficiency Manitoba should take based on their recommendations?
Ms. Kurlik?
Well, I guess I would say that based on their recommendations, we are implementing a lot of the direction. When it comes to how we reach their customer group, whether it's MKO or the Manitoba Métis Federation, for example, as a result of some of the information that those members gave to us, we started the Métis Energy Efficiency Offers, for example. So we have an energy advocate that we're funding that works for the Manitoba Métis Federation that's helping implement our programs within the Métis community. And that came as a result of direction from that particular member.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just want to have a question for Mr. Chair. I've got a question for the CEO. When it comes to Efficiencies Manitoba's total investment for efficiencies last year, where was most of the investment put towards?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yeah, so our expenditures, I would say the lion's share of our expenditures, and roughly on average for our efficiency plan, was 65% go directly to incentives to customers. So that's a very large portion. We also have a percentage that goes to the private sector in terms of supporting our business. So Efficiency Manitoba has not established its own call center, for example. We have that outsourced. We do not have an IT help desk department. We outsource that. So I would say roughly 80% of all of our expenditures are either going to the private sector through contracted services or through incentives to customers.
Mr. Pranuk?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just have another question for the CEO, Mr. Chair. Regarding to last year's investment or expenditures compared to last year for this year, this fiscal year, and also comparing to the very first year of operations.
Ms. Kurlik? Ms. Kurlik?
So that required me going back a few more years than I was ready for, but I do have that information for you. So we were sitting at about 26.5 million in 2020-21, then rising to 39.9 million. And then this past fiscal year closed March 31st, 2023, $47.8 million.
Mr. Khan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and this question is directed to the CEO. Looking at the annual report 22-23, Efficiency Manitoba total electricity savings reached 83% of their legislative target of 1.5, while natural gas savings reached 91% of their legislative target of 0.75. Just curious if the CEO is content or happy with the savings achieved in the last annual report.
Ms. Kurlik?
Well, insofar that our targets did not reach our legislated target, certainly not content nor happy. Surprised? Probably not surprised. I mentioned the market potential study in my opening remarks, and what that market potential study told us was that electricity savings in Manitoba market are starting to decline in terms of opportunity. So. And a lot of that is driven primarily from one technology, which is non-residential lighting. So the non-residential lighting opportunity is largely disappearing at a rate faster than anyone predicted, and I would say that goes for a lot of utilities and energy efficiency providers in the U.S. as well. A recent report card that was released stated that was one of the big challenges everyone was facing, is that the electricity savings are getting harder to achieve. But the market potential study did also give us a sight line into what could be possible, and we could actually achieve our legislated targets. It would require more investment, but we can get there. And so that is our intent. We are in our next efficiency plan that's going to be filed this year. We will be putting forward 3 levels of energy efficiency. So the scenario that's consistent with what we're offering today, as well as 2 more enhanced levels. And so through a PUB review process where they will rigorously look at our cost effectiveness and what we're offering, there will be an opportunity for interveners to sit in on that process, and essentially the PUB will end up making a recommendation to Minister Schmidt on what level of energy efficiency should be adopted in Manitoba.
MLA Khan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, CEO Krulik, for that answer. And the same question I'll pose to the minister when it comes to those savings.
Minister Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, given the current regulatory framework and the great work that Efficiency Manitoba has done since its inception, to use sort of a turn of phrase, I think that Efficiency Manitoba has sort of picked the low-hanging fruit. And so given the current regulatory framework and the fact that Efficiency Manitoba has been asking for a renewed mandate, an expanded mandate, something that the previous government failed to act upon, I think that with a renewed mandate and some changes to that regulatory framework, I think that I have full confidence that Efficiency Manitoba going into the future will be able to hit those targets.
MLA Khan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm just curious, of the total budget that is allotted to Efficiency Manitoba, can the CEO comment on how much of the budget was actually expended to reach these energy savings?
Ms. Kurlik?
So in the last fiscal period, we were able to reach those energy savings that were previously stated at roughly 63% of our budget.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to commend the CEO for that on 63% of the budget and achieving 83% of their target and 91% of their gas savings target. I think is a pretty good accomplishment for only expending 63%. So hat off to you and your team at Efficiency Manitoba for achieving that in the last annual report. I guess the question then just begs, with the other 37%, is there a reason why that other 37% of the overall 72 million wasn't spent to achieve those targets?
Ms. Kurlik.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, incentives are roughly 65% of our budget. So if we don't get all the participation we want in energy savings, that has a really big impact on our actual budget and expended. And one of the important things to note, when we first established our budget in 2019, we were a team of 5 people, and we were budgeting for a Crown corporation that didn't exist. So, it actually was quite a challenging thing to do. We didn't even know exactly specifically what employees we would have at that time. So definitely challenging to budget for something that, you're starting from scratch. But really, I think when we start getting more incentives into the hands of customers, we'll be hitting closer to our budget.
MLA Khan.
Yeah, and again, thank you very much to the CEO for those comments, Mr. Chair. And I think, again, what you commented on a few years back, there's just 5 of you started this off under the previous government that saw a need for Efficiency Manitoba to be created. So I think you've come a long way, and you and your team and the organization on accomplishing those. And, we look forward to hitting the 100% of the targets as you go forward with that expanded mandate. Just a follow-up question on, does the CEO have a number on how much money was saved, given the electricity savings, the net gas savings, rough ballpark figure, if they can quantify that for us here today?
Ms. Kurlik. Ms. Kurlik.
Would the member opposite be happy with significant bill savings? We'll get you that number. It's in the millions. It's significant. And I mean, what I will say is, in a time, especially now with affordability being so important for both residential customers and business customers alike, the bill savings are significant. I'll get you and put on the record the exact numbers.
MLA Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, sorry, that was a bit of a rabbit trail question. So if the Mr. Chair, if the CEO can maybe a 2-week timeline, if that's reasonable, to come back to committee and present us with those figures, unless it looks like they may have them now. Amazing.
Ms. Kurlik.
Okay, so for the 2022-2023 fiscal period, the customer bill savings were 11.5 million in electric and 2.7 million in both natural gas and the federal carbon charge.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask the CEO about the Efficiency Manitoba's programs, how they're proposed, studied, and implemented.
Ms. Kurlik.
So thank you for that question. We could either go into a really deep dive on that and talk about the energy savings profile of a specific electric technology and how we get value for those energy savings at different times of day and different periods of the year. But maybe I'll start with, the known technologies for energy efficiency we know that they exist, and there's nothing out there that we're not aware of. So typically what we would do is we would look at the channel that delivers that technology to the market first and foremost. So if you're going to be looking at an air source heat pump, we would talk to the air source heat pump installers to find out how do those things get installed today? What are the challenges in them selling air source heat pumps over an electric furnace? And basically, we look to eliminate the barriers through all aspects of a marketing strategy, whether it's capital cost being the primary example of why energy efficiency may not be pursued, lack of knowledge and awareness from customers about the energy efficient technology, and one of the more challenging ones is capacity to deliver. So that one, is probably not something that is seen often in our advertising and promotion, but if there are not a lot of installers for air source heat pumps, for example, we would work to try and build that capacity in the market. And so a really good example of that was, energy modeling is it's a service that customers can use typically through an engineering firm. And back 10 years ago, energy modeling wasn't a profession that was very easy to find in Manitoba. So as a design idea, we put an incentive towards an energy model, which then encouraged engineering firms to have energy modelers on staff so that they could pursue the energy model, because doing an energy model to build a new building or design a new building is going to net you more savings than looking at it prescriptively through different technologies. So that's an example of different ways that we can design a program that impact different barriers that are maybe not as apparent as the initial capital cost barrier.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for that answer. What has been the uptake for Efficiency Manitoba's new program launches over the 22-23 fiscal year?
Ms. Kurlik. Ms. Kurlik.
So I'll give you an anecdotal answer, and I would undertake to get you more specifics, but air source heat pumps was one of the new technologies that we offered, and I think there was roughly a doubling from the year it was launched to this past year. And I know with windows and doors, the number is a number I've seen, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 192% increase. I'll have the good folks behind me correct me if it's off, which it probably will be. Oh, 197% increase on windows and doors. So definitely, as we've been out in the market advertising more, the year of the pandemic was our official commencement. So 2020 was a tough period of time for us to be coming out and celebrating our arrival. And so the first few years were, I would say, relatively quiet for our advertising. I mean, we couldn't get into homes and businesses, or our contractors couldn't get into homes and businesses, and people were most certainly preoccupied with other things than how energy efficient they were. So in those previous years, participation was lower than what we expected, but in this past year has been our best year yet in terms of participation.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for that answer. Of Efficiencies Manitoba's 40 programs, which 5 have the most uptake, and which 5 programs have the least uptake by consumers or businesses here in Manitoba?
Ms. Kurlik. Ms. Kurlik, go ahead.
So just wanted to clarify that question, whether uptake meant number of participants or volume of savings. And would it be the residential market or the commercial market? it kind of makes a difference.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you. Could the CEO maybe elaborate on all those points for clarification for the committee here?
Ms. Kurlik?
I'll give it a go. So residential programs, by nature of how many residential customers we have, typically have the most participants. So I would say windows and doors, excuse me. Windows and doors, insulation, and our energy efficiency assistance program have seen a lot of, tremendous uptake. We also get, by pure number of participants, a lot of uptake in our retail rebate campaign. So we're talking in the hundreds of thousands when we do our retail rebate campaign. So you can see there's a pretty wide range of when you ask purely by participation, a pretty wide range. Some of our lower participating programs would be ones that are typically more involved energy efficiency retrofits. So deep energy retrofits, like trying to find customers that are ready to retrofit their entire house, typically from the studs outward. It's harder to find those participants, but they net more savings for that project. Equally, now, unfortunately, geothermal heat pumps are a technology that's, more costly and more complex. So we have fairly low take-up at this point in geothermal heat pumps as well.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for that answer. Is Efficiency Manitoba considering winding down any programs due to a lack of uptake by consumers or businesses?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yes, that's a good question. And as much as we need a program for almost every technology in order to reach our savings, there are some that simply become more effort with our limited staff that we have than what they're worth. And so one such program I know that was just wound down this past December, I believe, was our pool pump program. So not a huge amount of Manitobans have pools, and so pool pumps are a program where we are not going to get a lot of participation by necessity that people don't have pools, but that the effort to still run the program analysis, market the program, bring in the customers, process the incentives takes time, and so that one was wound down.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for that answer. Is Efficiency Manitoba considering expanding eligibility of any programs? And I guess, as an MLA, I've got a lot of questions over the past few years on why just people's initial home or their home is the only thing eligible and not cottages, because they're looking for energy efficiency wherever they might be in Manitoba, whether they have a cottage at the lake or whatever. And I understand that perhaps Efficiency Manitoba's mandate is just primary residences, but I'm wondering if there's any thoughts of expanding that to all facilities owned by consumers or businesses here in Manitoba.
Ms. Kurlik?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and one that we've received for a very long time. And the quick answer is cost effectiveness. And so we still have a mandate to be cost effective. And so typically with a cottage owner, you're in your cottage for less time than your primary residence. And so that's literally what it comes down to. However, Efficiency Manitoba, in an effort to be, making sure that our customers are well served with our programs, have been looking at instances where if the cottage is operated year-round, so it's a winter heated cottage, or they are trying to retrofit their cottage for it to be their eventual home, we've been looking at ways that we can still fit them into our programs. And that's a big difference that we have as a small Crown corporation with a focused mandate on achieving energy efficiency, is that we can make sort of those kind of adaptations. And sometimes it'll be as simple as a per customer basis, but we are looking at, if we were to roll out an offer that might be applicable to cottages, would we do that at a prorated incentive you know, to make sure that we're still balancing the cost effectiveness, because typically the savings won't be as high in a building that's only used part-time.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I just want a question for the CEO. When it comes to, let's say, the 276 megawatts of hours of electricity savings for Manitoba, I know in the past government, we were able to attract outside investment, especially when it came to Roquette, which Roquette and Simplot, just in that one quarter section of land, created an investment of $1.4 billion. It also created many jobs and the economy in Portage to really thrive. And that's just one part of one community. But when it comes to the amount of savings, what does it equate to when it comes to the amount of more electricity there is for, let's say, companies that want to come to Manitoba to invest, to do business? Because the fact is, it's green energy. It's important that we focus on that. How much savings would there be to get those companies to come in here? What does it equate to?
Ms. Kerlick?
So what I can say is that the two projects that you mentioned definitely had energy efficiency added to the proposal to bring those customers to Manitoba. And obviously, I'm not sure if divulging incentives or divulging customers we're working with now would probably be appropriate. I think most are under NDA. But you are right. There's no question that energy efficiency and making sure that those companies, when they do get established here, are being as energy efficient as possible, because as we all know, we are facing some constraints, and in particular in some of the areas that you mentioned, areas of the province that you mentioned. So we are part of a overall team that helps to make the case to site in Manitoba. Green energy, inexpensive electricity is certainly a big driver, but there's no question that our add to the proposal has oftentimes been a really helpful add to make sure that customers choose Manitoba.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And another question for the CEO, Mr. Chair. When it comes to the amount of, like, the savings, like when it comes to 276 gigawatts savings, what is it equivalent to, let's say, when it comes to the amount of houses now that can, and I'm sure you have probably a number there, that would be savings for when we can now heat more homes, especially with the growing economy, more houses being built throughout the province?
Ms. Kerlick? Ms. Kerlick?
So we have the number for what we were planning. So for 335 gigawatt hours. So I guess you can take my number with a plus, or I guess a minus, but is approximately equivalent to disconnecting over 150 big box stores per year in Manitoba. And on the gas side, we have 12 million meters cubed per year, and that's about the equivalent of disconnecting 70 big box stores heated with natural gas, obviously.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I've got another question for the CEO. When it comes to mandates, when it comes to energy efficiencies, what about also efficiencies when it comes to water conservation? Is that kind of in the mandate? I was looking at every kind of resource that we have that we can do efficient. Can Efficiency Manitoba actually look at that possibility for savings when it comes to the water supply that we have here in Manitoba?
Ms. Kerlick?
So many of a few of our technologies actually save hot water, and so that has an energy component and the water component. So we do impact some water conservation. It's not currently our mandate to save straight water, and again, Manitoba Hydro is paying for Efficiency Manitoba based on the value that they get from the saved kilowatt hour and the saved meter cube of natural gas, and so that would be an ask of ratepayers to be assisting with water conservation that's not heated, so doesn't have an energy component to it. So we would have to likely look at another source of funding, but we would absolutely be capable of doing that. And it's very close to, influencing customers' purchasing decisions, whether it's energy conservation or water conservation, certainly in our wheelhouse, but it would have to be a mandate expansion.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want a question again for the CEO. When I was in government, we were on economic development, community cabinet, and we also attract many interests when it comes to investment companies that want to look at Manitoba as a destination. How much information do you get, and how much do you actually have a conversation with any potential investors that want to come to Manitoba to do business, to attract, and how much does your organization actually communicate with potential investors?
Ms. Curlick?
Yeah, and it's a timely question because I was just made aware of one that's happening this week. So we are not, Efficiency Manitoba wouldn't be the point of entry for these conversations. Obviously, we'd be looking at the economic development branch in government, yes, Winnipeg, Centerport, and we work closely with those organizations, and we are brought to the table when potential economic development opportunities are facing Manitoba. We aren't a point of entry, but we're definitely involved in the conversation and actually keeping us rather busy right now.
MLA Khan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to get back to, I don't think we gave enough due to the hard work and the success that Efficiency Manitoba has had over the just a few years since inception to now. So, I want to again commend the CEO and our staff, $14.2 million in savings in just this last annual report. And I believe the CEO did mention that they had started with 5 staff. Can maybe the CEO comment, Mr. Chair, on what the current staffing levels are at Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Curlick?
As at the end of this fiscal March 31st, 2023, we're at 72 FTEs.
MLA Khan?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, was that 7 or 17? Sorry.
Ms. Curlick?
72. So our efficiency plan stated a complement of 75 FTEs, and definitely has been a very, very busy time for our HR person in onboarding or helping to onboard several employees. We transferred roughly 42 people from from Manitoba Hydro Power Smart, and the rest were new hires. So it's been a very busy couple of years.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And wow, 14.2 million in savings, and now you've gotten staff to 72. Just commendable work that you and everyone there has done, and just growing from 5 people to 72. Now, I would assume the answer to this question is a fairly simple one, but I'll ask it anyways. Given the success and the trajectory that Efficiency Manitoba has had in the past few years and in the foreseeable future, would the CEO comment on, since the inception of Efficiency Manitoba, if they would deem this as a successful start to Efficiency Manitoba?
Ms. Curlick?
The quick answer is yes. I feel very, very proud of what we've built. It was no small feat. There was no manual for starting a Crown Corporation in Manitoba, I can tell you that. So yeah, and I mentioned it in my opening remarks, and to the people in this room, a lot of tremendous hard work, long hours to both bring an efficiency plan through a Public Utilities Board regulatory hearing, but also create and establish a Crown Corporation. And so, one of the highlights and one of the really big tasks that we had to do when we first started was to build the system for our organization. So we've built a customer relationship management, demand side management system to go completely paperless for all of our customers. And that houses all of our savings data so that our external evaluator can access that system and pull the information they need to do their evaluation. But it also speaks through to our accounting system so that payments go through to the accounts payable folks in a seamless way. And we've had really great reviews from the contractors that are consistently using our portal to import and input their customers' applications. And yeah, that was, you know, one of the first things I handed over to my Vice President of Efficiency Programs, who's over my left shoulder here, is we need to build a better system because at Manitoba Hydro Power Smart, the databases were all separate and everything was on paper. So for the IT folks in the room, it was the conceptual data model of what we had and what we built is drastically different. So.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, CEO, for that answer. And yes, I think it has been extremely successful for you and your team, and we all recognize that we are only as strong as our team. So for you to, you know, constantly acknowledge your team is a great sign of leadership on your behalf and the great team you have. I'll pose the same question for the minister. Does the minister, in her opinion, believe that since the inception of Efficiency Manitoba to where they are today has been a success story and will continue to grow? With given that the minister does mention that they want to expand the mandate.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. I will echo Ms. Kurlick's comments. I think that Efficiency Manitoba has been a success story, especially when you consider some of the challenges that they experienced being stood up in 2020, the year of the pandemic. There were significant challenges in that regard, but we have seen continued progress year over year. And again, with a renewed and refreshed mandate, I have no doubt that Efficiency Manitoba will continue to expand and grow on that great work.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the minister for those comments and recognizing Efficiency Manitoba. So I just want to, just for the record, so the minister will commit to maintaining the good work, of course, that Efficiency Manitoba is doing for now and the foreseeable future.
Minister Schmidt.
I'm not sure if Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if I completely understand the question. Yet Efficiency Manitoba will continue to operate and we will continue to support their operation.
MLA Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It was a very simple one. You had answered, but it was just train of thought here. So yeah, as you already answered that, so that's great to hear. Now, the troubling thing, Mr. Chair, I guess a comment to have for the minister is, you know, the minister has said today they're going to commit to expanding on the work that the great work Efficiency Manitoba is doing and has done and will continue to do. But her colleagues and the premier of this province himself is quoted as saying, it's probably more rightly called Inefficiency Manitoba. So just like to get maybe some clarification comments from the minister, as the minister is committing today to expand and continue to work with Efficiency Manitoba, and yet her premier or her leader and the premier of the province is on the record of saying more rightly called Inefficiency Manitoba.
MLA Khan, I would ask that you would tie your question into the annual report of Efficiency Manitoba. MLA Khan.
Sure, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And that question is directly tied into the success and performance that Efficiency Manitoba has had in this annual report. So basing that question on the performance and success of the 22-23 annual report, I think it is incumbent and important for Manitobans to understand where this minister and this government want to go forward with Efficiency Manitoba when the premier is contradicting exactly what the minister has doubled down on today.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as I stated earlier, I think Efficiency Manitoba has been doing a great job. I think that there is certainly room to grow. I think that, as we've noted, you know, the annual budgets have not been spent. I would argue that, you know, the previous government failed to act on Efficiency Manitoba's continued requests for a renewed and refreshed mandate, an expanded mandate. And we are looking forward, and we are committed to making sure that Efficiency Manitoba continues their good work and operates in the best interest of Manitobans.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, getting back to the annual report, when we look at the energy savings of 83%, in electricity, 91% of natural gas, for savings of over $14.2 million. We do see that the Efficiency Manitoba is doing some great work there, and the minister has said that they will continue to support that based on this annual report and going forward. I guess the question here for Manitobans and the question for the committee today is the mixed messaging that we're hearing from the minister and the current now premier, and I'll quote the leader of the opposition at the time, had stated, quote, "So will the premier cancel this experiment with Efficiency Manitoba? Inefficiency Manitoba, rather, and commit to renewing programs that help Manitobans reduce their carbon footprints." End quote. So the question, Mr. Chair, is simply for the minister. Is the minister saying that they are in contradiction to what the premier has stated on the record?
The Premier's comments are not in the annual report, and I'm going to ask the member to once again tie their questions to the annual report. MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I apologize for getting off track with the annual report. So I guess the question in regards to the annual report is, again, just to be clear one more time for the record, that the minister today will commit to supporting Efficiency Manitoba and continue the great work they're doing.
MLA Schmidt, or sorry, Minister Schmidt.
Efficiency Manitoba was set up to save Manitobans money, to reduce the strain on our grid. I think that they've been doing that. I think under the previous administration, there was certainly some opportunities that were missed. Manitobans elected a new government in October, and our government is committed to helping Efficiency Manitoba see their full potential.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to defer to Mr. Khan.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I've been using a vague, this is for the CEO here, I've been using a vague a few years back. When did Efficiency Manitoba first start up, if the CEO has recollection of that?
Ms. Kurluk.
The Efficiency Manitoba Board, I believe, started in May of 2018. Myself, as the first CEO, started in January of 2019. And the efficiency plan, the commencement date of our actual first 3-year efficiency plan was April 1st, 2020.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, and this is the third annual report for Efficiency Manitoba, Mr. Chair, or to the CEO, sorry.
Ms. Kurluk.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Technically, it's the fourth. We did do an annual report in 2019, 2020 as well. Obviously, we didn't have any efficiency programs at that time, so it focused more so on the startup of the organization.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the annual report, so is the CEO aware of any Efficiency Manitoba, I guess since its inception in 2018, were there any programs in existence prior to that?
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, there would have been several programs that were in existence prior to 2018. There was a very distinct interest in making sure that there was continuity in the programs that were being delivered to Manitobans by Manitoban businesses. So one of the concerns that we heard right away was with the establishment of Efficiency Manitoba, you know, we don't want to lose the programs, nor do we want to pause the programs that many businesses, you know, use as a foundation for the work that they do. So many programs were transferred over, and many programs were created new as well.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you. I want to thank the CEO for just clarifying the background and the history of how, you know, I guess efficiency in the province of Manitoba was done before. It sounds like before it was done at a bunch of different, maybe independents or businesses or separate organizations doing it. Then it was under the previous government in 2018 and 2019 that it came together to form Efficiency Manitoba with the Act, and this is the fourth annual report. So I believe, is that the quick surmise of the history of how the I guess the inception of Efficiency Manitoba came to be then, under the previous government?
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I would correct from that record was that efficiency programs were not being delivered by several entities. It was being delivered by Manitoba Hydro under the PowerSmart brand.
MLA Khan.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for clarifying that for the record to the CEO that it was under the previous government that it was formed from Manitoba Hydro to form Efficiency Manitoba, which the great work it's doing today. So I just want to thank the CEO for that clarification.
Ms. Kurlik, would you like to respond?
Thank you for those accolades.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk about heat pumps. I would like to know a little bit about heat pumps, what the differences are between air source and ground source, and how heat pumps and geothermal seem to be used interchangeably sometimes. I'd just like an explanation to the committee of those two terms and what they mean to Efficiency Manitoba.
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another topic that we could go very deep on, but I'll start at the high level and see if that satisfies your question. A geothermal heat pump is a more efficient way of heating your home electrically. And essentially what a geothermal heat pump does is it takes heat that exists in the ground and transfers that into the home. And the loops are buried in the ground that pull that heat from the ground to supplement the heat in your home. And so they can be roughly 60% more efficient than an electric resistance furnace. So air source heat pumps, on the other hand, take the heat that's in the air, which seems funny because, you know, right now in a day like today, people would say there's no heat in the air, but it does take heat from the air and brings that into your home. And so an air source heat pump will save roughly 30%. And typically in Manitoba in particular, an air source heat pump will need some form of backup heating system for the very coldest days. So now with the programs that we have, geothermal heat pumps will typically cost a little bit more because there is trenching that's required or horizontal drilling to put the loops in the ground, whereas air source heat pumps everything can be done above ground. And does that cover the member's question, or should we go deeper?
Mr. Nisbet.
No, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for that answer. That certainly describes the difference between the two, and I think that that ties it back into what geothermal is. The heat pumps are the geothermal. So what kind of uptake and participation has Efficiency Manitoba seen in, I guess, in both sources of heat pumps over the past fiscal year?
Ms. Kurlik.
So I have projections there. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Chair, so for participation in ground source heat pumps, we've had 15 in the past year for 22-23 on geothermal and 33 on air source heat pumps.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be fair to say that perhaps air source heat pumps might be utilized more in dense population areas like a city compared to ground source heat pumps?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Entirely possible, absolutely. The thing about geothermal heat pumps is that you do have to put loops in the ground, right? So you need to have that sort of space. There are such things now as district geothermal systems, which would mean the loop would be in a space that maybe is on public lands, and then there's a connection that just has to go from the district loop to the house. But if you are installing a geothermal in a household, you have to have adequate space dedicated for that loop in the household. So likely fair to say there's lots of different reasons that people choose geothermal or air source, and space is definitely one of them.
Mr. Nisbet.
Mr. Chair, and thank you to the CEO for that answer. Is Efficiency Manitoba working with developers in cities to, like they say, put the geothermal loops in so they can serve entire subdivisions perhaps?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we actually are in very early conversations with a couple, some more advanced than others, but We have one developer that's has a very great vision for a greenhouse gas emissions-free development, and so we're in very lengthy discussions with that particular developer. Also have a couple other ones that some greenfield sites that are looking to maybe possibly do something with the district system, and in early conversations with them as well. Right now, we didn't have a specific district geothermal program per se, but one of the innovations that the team came up with at Efficiency Manitoba as a result of one of these developers that we've been working with is can we separate what a new building receives as an incentive? So a new building would receive an incentive from a geothermal heat pump, but can we separate that from a district system? Because essentially the district system would be put in by somebody else, whereas the building owner or developer is building the building. So can you separate those two incentives? And so through the energy modelers that we have at Efficiency Manitoba, they've actually come up with a way that you can do that. So we're looking forward to testing that innovation to see if we can still maintain cost effectiveness by looking at a project in that fashion.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer. So a total of 48 pumps over the last fiscal year. The current government has promised to install 5,000 new geothermal systems over the next 4 years. I would assume that the government would then have to work with Efficiency Manitoba on that. Do you see that as realistic when 48 homes were done over the past year, that we could do an average of 1,250 a year over the next 4 years?
Ms. Kurlik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, and I think the conversation we just had on that with respect to some innovations on district geothermal would point to a really good potential to get those numbers. The other thing, I just want to correct the record because I was mentioning the ground source heat pump program, the air source heat pump program. We've actually installed quite a few geothermal heat pumps in First Nation communities as well, which is a separate program. So I just want to correct the record, and I'll look over my shoulder if we have that number. So the 48 that I've mentioned were not the full complement. Those were two programs. And so the district geothermal definitely poses a really good opportunity to get a lot more geothermal heat pumps installed, and plus the additional programs that we have that we're offering right now for geothermal.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd be very interested if the CEO could provide that number so we have a total number of installations in 22-23. So my understanding is the province has an agreement in principle under Ottawa's oil to heat pump affordability program to convert 2,500 homes in Manitoba from home heating oil to electricity or natural gas. Is Efficiency Manitoba involved in that, and can the CEO please let us know how many homes have been converted in Manitoba so far?
Ms. Kurlik?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a meeting on the oil to air source or oil to heat pump program on Wednesday this week. So I don't believe anything's been signed. I'll find out on Wednesday. But given that nothing's been signed, I don't believe there's been really any installations. Although I do understand that there's been maybe a couple customers that applied directly to the federal government for the oil to heat pump program.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for that answer. Yes, it's our understanding that there's been 2 applications to the federal government under that program, and both were denied. Again, there's a long way to go in terms of converting the oil users to electricity here in Manitoba. Is the minister aware of this program, and is the minister aware of those stats that there's only been 2 applications under this program and both were denied?
Mr. Schmidt?
I know that our department has been working very closely with the Crown Corporation at Efficiency Manitoba and along with our federal counterparts to get the oil to heat program co-delivered within this fiscal year.
Mr. Nisbet?
Does the minister or the CEO, I'll leave it open, know how many oil users are in Manitoba for heating their homes?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, the 2,500 was a number that we actually provided to the department based on, we work closely with Manitoba Hydro on an end-use survey. So that was the most recent data that we had regarding fuel oil heated customers. We also support fuel oil heated customers through programming for insulation, for example, under the Affordable Energy Fund. So we still do support those customers. So we actually have had participation in our programs for insulation and windows, and therefore are able to do a better job of marketing to those customers, perhaps than what the federal government is able to do. And one thing I'd just like to add regarding the denied heat pumps, and I don't have the details because obviously that's going directly to the federal government. But what it does do is speak really clearly to why co-delivery and working with the provincial government is very important, because I suspect that those heat pumps were probably denied because the customer needed to maintain their backup system. And so whether they were wanting to maintain a backup system of fuel oil or an electric furnace, that definitely increases the cost. And so a lot of the heat pumps that have been delivered under the federal program have been delivered successfully on the East Coast, in the Maritimes, where backup sources are not required. And so, you know, the unique nature of our environment in Manitoba means that there'll have to be some enhancements or some accommodations made for the customers that want to participate here in Manitoba. And so that's been really positive that the department has been working with the federal government to make sure that those changes can be made.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Has Efficiency Manitoba been having any discussions with the provincial government on securing federal investment into the existing heat pump program?
Ms. Kurlik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would say from the perspective that like we use the federal investment in the low carbon economy fund if we're switching a customer from natural gas to geothermal, but outside of that, we haven't asked for further investment. Unfortunately, you know, about 2 weeks ago, the federal government did end their Greener Homes Grant program, which was an avenue that the federal government was investing directly to customers in these types of technologies. And so, you know, we worked closely with the energy advisors that were doing the energy audits on Manitoba homes. That was a prerequisite of the federal program to participate and get those incentives for geothermal or air source heat pumps. And so we note that that will definitely have an impact on customers because they were able to stack both the federal government money with Efficiency Manitoba's money and buy down a larger percentage of that cost for those installations. So, you know, we have been speaking with the federal government in terms of what is the next iteration of a Greener Homes grant program and what does that look like and how can we make sure that Manitoba customers are served well with that federal program. But outside of that, I think that would be the only discussions that we're having.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you very much for that answer, Mr. Chair. Does the CEO have that information then on the total number of geothermal installations in the last fiscal year, or will the CEO undertake to provide that in a timely basis?
Ms. Kurlik?
Yes, I can undertake to get that. And you would be talking about geothermal heat pumps that may not have received any incentive at all from either a federal government or Efficiency Manitoba, or just participants in the programs.
Mr. Nisbet?
Yeah, I guess I was using the 48 number and you corrected me and there's more. So I would like to know the total number and I guess if there could be a breakdown between incentive heat pumps and ones that were installed otherwise that you know of.
Ms. Kurlik?
We can undertake to get those numbers.
Mr. Pinnock?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and we're going to stay on the question of geothermal pumps. Back in 2001, Mr. Chair, I was a part of an insurance brokerage ownership, and we built a brand new building in Burton, Manitoba. And we actually did in 2001, one of the first geothermal, it's new technology at the time. And we actually had to use, like, the good thing that we had a good sized lot, because we had to do, instead of doing 5 holes of 100 feet, we had to go 10 holes loop of hosing because they didn't have large enough drills to go vertical down. And this is the issue that I think we're going to be facing here, because right now the current government promised that there was going to be 5,000 in their mandate. And the thing is it let's say, for instance, a lot of it's going to have to be new housing that are being built so that the land is there. Or how practical, I want to ask the CEO, Mr. Chair, how practical is it now to actually go into an existing property and drill these vertical or horizontal lines for the pumps? So is that going to be because right now a lot of the houses that are being built in Winnipeg are really built on postage stamp lots. A lot of them are landscaped. It's very, very, very hard for a truck to be actually put on that lot to do those geothermal loops. I'm just going to ask the CEO if that's practical.
Ms. Kurlik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it technically feasible? So I won't go practical first. I'll go, is it technically feasible? Yes, I think it is. You know, I think it's not unlike a sewer connection, right? Your sewer pipes are on public property, and then there's a connection that goes to your house. So if a district geothermal, and I will qualify this answer with saying I am not a district geothermal designer, but if you can connect a house with a geothermal connection to a loop that's on public lands, that to me sounds technically feasible. Is it more practical or more cost effective to do it at the start of a development? I suspect so, because you're digging the trenches for all the services. It could be added at that time. So, you know, there's, I guess, different options and different levels of cost effectiveness.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks for that information. And yeah, so the other question I have when it comes to geothermal, so the fact is, so most of it will be under new construction, because the fact is, again, that's one of the obstacles that you'll also have too, as Mr. Chair, is when it comes to other utilities that are buried in ground, and the abilities of the actual equipment to get into someone's lot is going to be a major factor. I know they can build swimming pools in backyards. I guess they can do this too, but at the same time, that is going to be one of the challenges. And I just want to know what the cost would be, if it would be more expensive to do, I guess, on existing building versus a new development. And how much would that cost be, if you think?
Ms. Kurlik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so we have not participated, or Efficiency Manitoba has not participated in a district geothermal at this point yet. Like I said, we're very far along in discussions and technical support and some incentives for one customer. And I think at this point, probably commercially sensitive information to divulge the costs that they're experiencing, because it has been a tendered project. But we haven't, so we don't have a lot of experience with it. I mean, there are other jurisdictions that have some experience, and so if this is the path we're going to be going forward with, then we'll definitely do our due diligence and do some research and work to determine what those costs are. You mentioned cost effectiveness, and likely, and again, like I said, I'm not a district geothermal designer, but likely more cost effective, or less challenges, I guess, maybe, with a new site versus working with existing customers and their properties.
Mr. Panook?
I have a question now for when it comes to those on-demand heat boiler systems. We actually had an old boiler, well, actually really old boiler, which was almost as big as a hot water tank. Then we went to a now more of efficient square hot water boiler. And now we've got one that goes on demand. And not only does it heat the boiler system, the hot water system goes through the house, but also heats the hot water. So I was wanting to know if there's anything there. I know there's probably some programs, but I want to know how much savings would that be for that new technology? Do you guys have any idea of what for more people to do that type of efficiency when it comes to products like that?
Ms. Kurlik?
And Mr. Chair, I'm just going to ask a clarifying question. I guess my question to that question would be, are we talking about an electric sourced on demand or a natural gas sourced on demand? Okay.
Mr. Pranuk?
Mr. Chair, it's natural gas.
Ms. Kurlik?
So, Mr. Chair, we actually don't have any data per se on whether that system would even save very much money, which tells me it may not. Because if there's energy savings in any technology, we typically have a program around it. With water tanks and versus on demand, the real savings become what is the heat loss of your tank. So if you're talking about water heat, if your tank is the efficiency of your tank is low, say, and I think I'm going to speak from memory here, a standard efficiency gas water tank is maybe in the 56 to 60% efficient. And that typically means that it's losing heat at a faster rate than an efficient water tank, which might be 85% efficient. I know that there's a massive cost increase to go to a more efficient water tank, which is probably, which impacts our cost effectiveness. So on demand, the savings that you would achieve would be you're not having the heat loss from storing the water in a tank. And again, I'd have to endeavor for one of our technical folks to pull together that. Again, I'm not an engineer nor the technical person, but I would have to endeavor to get something like that if you wanted detailed information.
Mr. Pranuk?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And when it comes to like that type of exhaust, for instance, we had to use a chimney versus now we can just go to a vent. So there must be some kind of efficiencies there because of less amount of exhaust that comes off of natural gas when it comes to heating that type of unit. So if I can get some information on that, that'd be great. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
MLA Khan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, CEO. And I'm going to start off with a real simple one. I think you've already answered this to the CEO, but again, I'll get it just for clarification, Mr. Chair. Geothermal pumps are more efficient than regular natural gassing that Manitobans are using to heat their houses.
Ms. Kurlik?
That is correct. I think we estimate 60% savings on a geothermal and 30% on an air source heat pump.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And does the CEO currently have any numbers on how many houses in Manitoba are being heated with natural gas?
Ms. Kurlik? Ms. Kurlik?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to, this is sort of almost like a Manitoba Hydro question, but I'm thinking there's roughly 200 residential natural gas heated customers. What? Sorry, 200,000. Did I say 200? There's 200,000.
That'd be great.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and when the CEO said 200, I assumed she meant 200,000. I believe there's somewhere around 260,000 roughly from Hydro Committee last week, and that overtook. So about 260,000 houses in Manitoba using natural gas to currently heat their houses. Geothermal is more efficient, as the CEO said, about 60%. The question now is, does the minister have any idea of what it's going to cost to convert those 260,000 homes?
Minister Schmidt?
Yeah, it would certainly be an ambitious undertaking to eventually get all those $260,000 customers off natural gas. I don't have a number here today, but we're confident that Manitobans are moving in this direction. It's important. We're committed to facing and addressing the climate crisis head on, and we understand it's an ambitious plan, and we look forward to pursuing it.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the minister for that honest answer. That's a ridiculous number, 260,000. Convert that, but just laying for the next one here. When it comes to efficiency in the province of Manitoba and converting to geothermal, this government now committed to converting 5,000 homes to geothermal. And, to quote the CEO, that there's been a low uptake of geothermal conversions. Does the minister have a number on how much it's going to cost to convert 5,000 homes when they campaigned on net zero by 2035?
Minister Schmidt.
Yeah, we're very excited about phase one of our plan, which is implementing and co-delivering the oil to heat pump program with the federal government. We've secured an agreement in principle with the federal government at a rate of about approximately $15,000 per unit, understanding that there are 2,500 of those types of customers that are using oil to heat their homes here in Manitoba. That's looking about $37.5 million of investment flowing from the federal government here into Manitoba. We think that's a great first start to our plan, and we also look forward to pursuing projects as the CEO has outlined in a district model. And so those are the first phases of our program, and the next phase will be, and I think you would agree that 2,500 is half of 5,000. That's going to get us halfway there with significant investments from the federal government, something that I think Manitobans are looking for. I think Manitobans are excited about having a government today that is looking at collaborating with the federal government and taking advantage of those opportunities and those federal dollars. That's something that we've been lacking here in the province under the previous government, I would argue, and we're very excited to co-deliver that program with our federal counterparts.
I just want to provide a gentle reminder to the committee that the item on the agenda today is the 2022-2023 annual report, and that all questions should relate directly to that. MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that gentle and friendly reminder. And again, I would, just mention that everything we are talking about is regards to the annual report. So whether we're talking about the numbers in the actual annual report or stuff that the annual report is talking about or programs that Efficiency Manitoba is doing or wants to do is all relevant to the conversation happening today. The question then is, again, continuing around the geothermal as mentioned in the annual report. The minister talked about the oil to heat program with the federal government, and my colleague had mentioned earlier that although that is a program, only 2 applicants in the province of Manitoba have applied, and both of them are denied. So out of the 2,500 that this minister refers to in phase one, they're still 2,500 short. When it comes to the costs, and I asked this question because the Minister of Finance actually suggested that we ask this current minister for that. So again, getting back to the question, does the minister have any idea of what 5,000 conversion costs will be? And I'll quote the Minister of Finance as saying, "That's a question that would be better suited for my colleague who's the minister responsible for Efficiency Manitoba, which is the Department 4. So again, I asked the minister, since her Minister of Finance is telling me to ask her, what is the cost, any idea, to convert 5,000 homes to geothermal?
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we know is that Manitoba families and businesses are looking to take advantage of the green options and the green energy grid here in Manitoba. They are looking to save money, and we are working very closely with our department, with the Crown Corporation of Efficiency Manitoba, and with our federal counterparts to get our co-delivered program up and running. We really look forward to sharing those details with Manitobans as we develop our program.
We've had a request to take a 10-minute break. Is it the will of the committee to take a 10-minute pause? The committee will recess for 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, will the standing committee please come back to order? I would like to inform the committee that under Rule 84, Bracket 2, the following membership substitution has been made for this committee effective immediately. MLA Malloway for MLA Mraz. We'll now continue with questions. MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I'll just circle back a little bit, get our minds all back on the same track where we were before. Talking about the Efficiency Manitoba annual report when it comes to geothermal and projects and whatnot. So I guess my line of question will be along two is just to clarifying, when the minister talks about the oil to heat program, is that additional to the geothermal program? If the minister can clarify that, Mr. Chair.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understand your question, my understanding is that Efficiency Manitoba does already have programs that apply to geothermal heat pumps and air source heat pumps. So that is something that's in existence, and I'm assuming will continue to operate in the meantime. And what our government has been able to negotiate with the federal government is I guess we could call it a new or a novel co-delivered program to get homes in Manitoba that are currently specifically using oil to heat their homes and convert them onto a geothermal or an air source program. And that's because that is the federal program that exists today. The federal government, as I understand it, currently only has a oil to heat pump geothermal transition program. We are looking to partner with them and co-deliver that program here in Manitoba for Manitobans.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the minister for clarifying that. Thank you. That's a nice, good, easy question to start back off the second half of this. So the oil to heat program is different than the geothermal program. So that's the 2,500 homes that the federal government will hopefully have a partnership with this provincial government on converting. Is the minister aware of that program? Is when the conversion of the oil to heat pumps, is that going to go to air or to geothermal in that federal program?
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. My understanding is that federal program is set up for both, either ground source heat pumps or air source heat pumps.
MLA Khan.
Gotcha. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And I might have this mistaken because it was right before break. I believe the minister had mentioned something along the lines, maybe the minister can clarify this, Mr. Chair, that the agreement, the federal government would pay for half of roughly the conversions at $37.5 million, if that's correct, of the 2,500 oil, current oil homes that use oil to heat.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. Yes, I understand that you're correct, and that there's, based on the figures that we have provided to us from Manitoba Hydro and their research, there are about 2,500 homes in Manitoba that currently use oil to heat their homes. But I'll just have to correct the record that our agreement in principle with the federal government is that the federal government's share would cover about 75% of the upfront cost. $15,000 per unit, with the provincial government matching at or contributing $5,000 per unit.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think we might have asked this in the earlier very beginning of this committee, but and I'm sure it's outlined in the annual report. But does the CEO, Mr. Chair, have the number for the total budget for Efficiency Manitoba in this annual report?
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that the budget is in there. It's roughly $76 million for 22-23.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can go with that number. That I believe from reading the annual report, that sounds about right. It's 76 million. Does the CEO believe, based on this annual report and going forward with hopes of further expanding the mandate by Efficiency Manitoba, or that they want to work with the government to expand the mandate and the programs, incentives, the geothermal, that they will need an increased budget to operate in the future?
Ms. Kurluk.
Mr. Chair, I think it's probably somewhat premature until we know exactly how Efficiency Manitoba will be involved and what the program parameters are to say whether we'll need an increased budget or not. You know, our program, because this is the second extension year of our efficiency plan, so we've had 2 extensions. So our budget has largely remained intact until such time as we can do a fully modeled and developed efficiency plan, which is an activity that's underway as we speak.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in regards to the geothermal programs that are currently being run with Efficiency Manitoba, you know, I want to get back to the question that the Minister of Finance posed that I asked the Minister here today. And I'll quote again, I don't think we got an answer for this for a number. And the Minister of Finance says, when asked, does the minister have an idea what 5,000 homes conversion costs would be? And the minister is again quoted as saying, that's a question I think would be better suited for my colleague who's the minister responsible for Efficiency Manitoba. So, Mr. Chair, the question is, you know, being how this program, the 5,000 geothermal is different than the oil to heat pump program that's the federal government's going to partner with. Does the minister have a number for the 5,000, for the conversion of the 5,000 cost, as the Minister of Finance suggested that she would?
The Minister of Finance's comments are not in the annual report, and I would ask that you would tie your questions to the annual report. MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for that. I assume since the Minister of Finance had asked me to ask the Minister here today that I could do that, but I remissed. I apologize for that. From Hansard. So the question, I guess, then will go to the to the CEO, Mr. Chair, is does the CEO have a rough cost? We've talked about oil to heat pump conversion cost. Does the CEO have a cost of what it costs typically for installation of a geothermal for a resident?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so we would have installation costs from participating customers, and this would be under the current program, a customer that installs a dedicated geothermal heat pump to their home. And of course, it's a range of costs because different homes need a bigger system, but the range of cost customers that have gone through the program have experienced is between $25,000 and $40,000.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank the CEO for that number. I mean, that is a fairly large range, but of course, there's a ton of factors out there, and geothermal is still, I believe, relatively new, and we don't have a lot of experience, to quote the CEO, mentioning that. So 25 to 40, so if we take the average, or the median, I guess, of that, would be roughly 33,000, if we take just the middle point on that, for installation on that. Now, cost aside, to hit the target of 5,000 geothermal homes, you know, we're looking at roughly $1,250 a year. And being how, you know, the CEO had mentioned earlier that, you know, it's costly, it's more complicated, there's been a low uptick, and potentially not a lot of installers. Does the province currently have the workforce capacity to install 1,250 homes if that was so the wish of Manitobans?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think this kind of speaks to a conversation that we had before the break, which is there's a really interesting option out there to serve homes with geothermal through a district system. So not the dedicated per household geothermal. So I think when you start investigating innovative options such as a district system, I think that obviously the cost per household would be reduced. And again, in early discussions with some developers and customers that are contemplating this type of system, but don't have a lot of history yet on what that kind of cost would be.
MLA Khan.
Thank you to the CEO for that question. And just based on the rough numbers here, if we say the 33,000 and I guess the per district household, so I guess the question then would go to the minister, sorry here, Mr. Chair, is when they talk about their 5,000 target, can the minister clarify, is that per household or was that to district? Maybe they have some more clarification on what that 5,000 number looks like.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the answer would be all of the above. We're certainly looking at individual home conversions. We're looking at district conversions. But I also, just for the record, want to clarify, and there's been some numbers thrown out here. But again, I think it's important to distinguish that there are different technologies, right? Ground source heat pumps are certainly significantly more expensive. But our plan does not only include ground source heat pumps, we're also looking at air source heat pumps. And again, I will also remind the committee that we are working very closely, unlike the previous government, with our federal counterparts to secure investments and to co-deliver this program in partnership.
MLA Khan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I know the minister wants to constantly refer to the previous government, and I think the CEO and everyone in the room made it very clear that Efficiency Manitoba was started under the previous government, and Efficiency Manitoba has come a long way under the previous government, and we're here to talk about the annual report and moving forward with this 5,000 geothermal system. So, if I may be correct, the minister, that the commitment was to 5,000 new geothermal systems over the course of 4 years. Unless the minister is now saying that that is not correct, and the minister is saying that the premier was wrong when he quoted 4,000 or 5,000 geothermal systems.
Again, I'm going to ask the member to tie their questions back to the annual report of Efficiency Manitoba. MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll tie that question all back into the commitment of 5,000 new geothermal systems with the annual report from Efficiency Manitoba. Based on what the CEO said, between 25,000 and 40,000 as the range, given technologies and situations, as the minister alluded to. Middle cost, 33,000. 33,000 per home times 5,000. You're looking at a cost of $165 million. You break that down to 1 year, you're at about $41 million for the 1,250 homes. Again, using the middle cost, could be higher, could be slightly lower. 41 million for the installation of that for the geothermal, as the commitment was. Based on this annual report, that's 53% of Efficiency Manitoba's entire budget. The question is for the CEO, does the CEO believe that is the best way to spend the budget if this government was to go forward and live up to their promise of 5,000 geothermal houses in the next 4 years?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think, as the Minister Schmidt mentioned, we're not constricting, and I mean, I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, but not necessarily constricting the installations to one type. So what the cost will be, if it is geothermal or if it's air source, it's going to be different if we have federal funds that are also contributing to that cost, and customers that might want to contribute to the cost as well.
MLA Khan.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and I want to thank the CEO. And again, I appreciate that there's a wide range. So, I mean, we could use a different number if the minister doesn't like, or the CEO, the minister says 33,000. The middle point is not the right one. That's why I asked the question to the minister earlier. Do they have a number of what it costs to convert one household? I mean, I guess the question is to Efficiency Manitoba. Based on this annual report, you would have a forecast for the future, I would assume, on costs for energy efficiency in this province, and does Efficiency Manitoba have a forecast of the given variables, the high and low range on what it will cost to convert 5,000 homes to geothermal? Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, we have not prepared that forecast. I did mention earlier that we had a market potential study that looked at what was technically and economically feasible for energy savings in the province. And that was under a reference scenario, an enhanced scenario, and a max scenario, but that did not go by technology specifically. It's like, this is what the cost of achieving that level of savings would be. So that's the forecast that we do have in hand.
MLA Khan.
So just to clarify, Mr. Chair, sorry if I heard correctly, that the CEO, we don't have a forecasted number of what it would cost, high or low, on a variety of different factors of what the cost would be. Efficiency Manitoba, from here, that company does not have a cost for that, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurlik.
Mr. Chair, I'll just ask a clarifying question. Was the cost to what? We have a cost forecast for delivering energy savings at a higher level. But I'm not sure if the member is asking whether it's a cost for heat pumps or the cost of what.
Emily Kahn.
And that's, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and that's a very fair question to the CEO. I apologize for that. In the preamble, the cost of converting 5,000 homes to geothermal. Again, understanding and respecting that there is a wide variety of factors and reasons that can change that, whether it be district housing for a unit block of housing, individual housing, but does Efficiency Manitoba have any sort of forecast at all to tell Manitobans what that would cost?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would say, like, we have not been asked to provide that forecast. We're waiting to hear what the details of the affordable home heating program would be. And once we consult with the department, we'll look at costing out different options.
Emily Kahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And can I ask the CEO, I guess, to provide that costing to this committee when that is done?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would, I'm going to look to my right here for the minister, but I would say obviously that's going to be something that we work with the department first and foremost, but suspect there would be other avenues to request that data.
Minister Schmidt.
Yeah, Efficiency Manitoba is designed to do several things, including save Manitobans money. Another thing that I will add, and it's something that one of our committee colleagues pointed out very early in this discussion, and I think is very important because I think we are sort of veering a little bit into the weeds here when it comes to numbers, is just the terminology that we're using, right? We're talking about geothermal, and certainly that term has been used anecdotally in the House and in campaign promises, but I think we really need to clarify that when we use the term geothermal, we're talking about a vast array of technologies, all of which are very different in cost. And the CEO for Efficiency Manitoba can correct me if I am wrong, but I think that when she referenced the number of $25,000 to $40,000, what she was referencing, I believe, was ground source individual home heat pump installation. And I just want to highlight again that our program, as we're designing it currently, is not only for ground source geothermal, would also be for air source geothermal. And I know that's probably not a technical scientific use of that term, but anecdotally, that's the verbiage that we've been using. So I just wanted to highlight that for the committee because I don't want us to get hung up on numbers. The 25 to 40,000 would be for ground source. That's not the only thing we're looking at. Another thing I would like to highlight is that Efficiency Manitoba has a mandate to operate in a cost-effective manner. And our government is really focused on providing affordability for Manitobans and supporting Efficiency Manitoba to deliver their programs in a cost-effective way. And I have no doubt that we'll do that in the best interest of Manitobans.
Emily Kahn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the CEO and I thank the Minister for that clarification. You're right, there are a lot of new terms, I think for myself included. I've been maybe misstepping a little bit, and other colleagues in the room here on all sides. So I want to thank the Minister, first of all, for clarifying that, and then just so we're all again very clear that the commitment of 5,000 new homes to geothermal systems, when the Premier had said geothermal, now the Minister is saying that may be air pumps, maybe ground pumps, maybe district per household ground pumps. That's a wide range of different types of heating, more efficient heating systems, if I understand the Minister correctly. And that can be a wide range, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, I think you've put it exactly correctly, MLA Khan, that colloquially, I think when we use the term geothermal, we're referencing a whole bunch of different technologies that probably aren't technically and scientifically geothermal technologies, but it is a catch-all phrase and something that we use sort of colloquially, anecdotally to reference ground source, air source technologies that are more efficient. But thank you so much for the clarification.
Emily Kahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for that. That was great. I'm glad we're all on the same page now. See, the committee can be also very nice as well at times. So, question then, so if we go to the air source heat pumps, and then I only have one or two more other questions, then I'll pass to my colleague. Air source heat pumps, and maybe the CEO can correct me on this. If we are to convert to air source, I think you said the efficiency is about 30% on that. But I believe air source heat pumps also need a backup system, which is gas, natural gas. Will that cost of a backup gas system also be included in the installation of a air source system? Efficiency Manitoba can maybe comment on that a little bit, air source pumps.
Ms. Kurluk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. So yes, I had mentioned earlier that air source heat pumps typically in Manitoba, the coldest days in Manitoba will need a backup system. It doesn't have to be gas, it can be electric. It doesn't have to be new, it can be existing. And it depends on, the age of the existing gas furnace that might be in a household, whether a contractor could make sure that the controls are such that, you don't want the gas furnace competing with the air source heat pump. So they have to make sure it's an integrated system design, but I don't believe that it's necessary that a new gas furnace would be required in every air source heat pump installation.
MLA Khan?
And just two last questions here. Getting back to the workforce capacity, I think I had asked that question earlier. I just want to be clear on that. So if Manitobans were, and the masses do want to convert to geothermal housing and the wide range of what geothermal today I think we established means, does Efficiency Manitoba have the workforce to complete those installations, 5,000 in 4 years?
Ms. Kurluk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the quick answer is no, Efficiency Manitoba does not have the workforce to install geothermal heat pumps, but we wouldn't be the ones actually doing the installation necessarily. I mean, obviously there's a very large private sector group of businesses that are specifically doing geothermal installations. So we would leverage what we can, the expertise that exists in Manitoba today to assist with that.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and in all the efforts. I think the one thing this committee and everyone in this room can agree on is that we want Manitoba to become more efficient. We want it to become more green. We want to move forward in that direction. Just the concern that I have, though, is just with this new technology, and stated numerous times, we don't have a lot of experience in this province. It's a little bit out of the wheelhouse. It's mentioned in the annual report, but it's not a huge focus yet, and we're shifting to that. Does the CEO believe in their expertise or in their experience in this industry that we do have the workforce in this province to complete those, even though they're not a high demand product right now?
Ms. Kurluk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's a fantastic question. And it was something that I addressed with Mr. Nesbitt's question earlier on, which is one of the market barriers that efficient technologies face is sometimes capacity. But before we go there, I just wanted to correct something that you'd stated before, that it's a relatively new technology with limited experience. Geothermal has been around for a very long time, actually. So it's not new. It's just a more complex installation. And I have full faith in Manitobans, and I'm meeting with the Manitoba Business Council in a couple months to talk about how can Manitoba companies step up and take part in the green economy. And so I've got full confidence that the existing installers that are out there and will be ramping up their own installers and employees to make sure that they can deliver on a commitment for geothermal installs or air source heat pump installations.
Thank you.
MLA Khan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if Manitobans, again, based on the number of 5,000 of 260,000 houses in the province that are currently operated on gas, taking into account the district, but the district is not going to make up hundreds of thousands. So we still have hundreds of thousands of Manitobans that may want to convert to geothermal. How does a Manitoban get a lottery ticket from this government to convert to geothermal? Maybe the minister can answer that question, Mr. Chair.
Minister Schmidt?
We are very excited about our program. We understand that fully converting Manitoba, all Manitoban homes to a geothermal system, an air source or a ground source heat pump would be rather ambitious. Right now, we're working on our plan with Efficiency Manitoba for this fiscal year. We have a plan in this current mandate, our 4-year mandate, to convert 5,000 homes. We believe that our oil to heat pump co-delivered program with the federal government will get us halfway there. We have exciting district programs that we're working on, and we're very excited to deliver this program for Manitobans to save them money and also to address the climate crisis and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the Minister again for that answer. And I guess we look forward to how Manitobans will be drawn. So look forward to hearing some announcements from the government on how Manitobans would win a lottery ticket, I guess, to convert to this new energy or geothermal. If they want to convert their house, it's 5,000 to 260,000. I might stand a better chance of winning Lotto 649. But getting to the annual report here, when we talk about electric savings, natural gas savings, the question is for the CEO, with this increase in demand and where we're headed as a province, that we believe this is the right thing to do as a country, as a province, as a world, as a society, to become more green. And we're transitioning that way, and Manitoba is one of the greenest energy producers in this country. 276 gigawatts saved through Efficiency Manitoba in this annual report. Question for the CEO is, with this shift to geothermal and more green, and the concerns, the dire concerns that were brought up last week with Manitoba Hydro, and the fact that we may run out of energy by 2029, and based on this annual report, and the electric savings that are done, has the CEO or Efficiency Manitoba run any numbers on what that looks like for the increase in demand of these 5,000 houses, these 2,500 oil to heat pump houses, what that would do on the electric capacity, energy capacity of this province?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that obviously is a question better suited for Manitoba Hydro. I do not work on their load forecast, but I know that during their integrated resource planning process, they did run 4 scenarios of potential loads of the future. The 4th scenario being a very rapid decarbonization and a switch from from gas to electric resistance heating. So they have done those forecasts. They have some scenarios that have been run. And so what we're working with Manitoba Hydro on is some of the outputs of that integrated resource plan, which are specifically meant to be, how do we do beneficial electrification? How do we make sure that we're doing as much high value energy efficiency? And so when you mentioned them being out of energy by 2029, I believe that was it might have been a capacity issue versus energy. And so we know that to go from an electric resistance furnace to a geothermal heat pump is going to reduce the peak. So it actually would be a beneficial energy efficiency upgrade from an electric resistance furnace, and it would help them with the forecast that they've already put forward in those scenarios. So.
MLA Khan.
Thank you. I was going to pass it to my colleague, but the CEO, Mr. Chair, had mentioned a very interesting word in there, and that was the IRP. The IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan, which was the first in this province, was done under the former CEO of Hydro. So the question then, since the CEO had brought this up, just curious if the CEO has concerns that the IRP will no longer be used going forward in its original intent, as the CEO of Hydro is no longer there. It sounds like there's a synergy between obviously Hydro and Efficiency Manitoba and the IRP that the CEO mentioned. So will the CEO be using this IRP going forward for Efficiency Manitoba?
I believe this question would be better suited for Manitoba Hydro and not for Efficiency Manitoba. MLA Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the question is directly related to, maybe I'll paraphrase that, then I'll simplify it, Mr. Chair. Maybe the CEO can simply comment on, is the CEO or will the CEO be using the IRP that was designed under the former CEO of Hydro in Manitoba, in Efficiency Manitoba operations going forward?
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. We We are working with Manitoba Hydro on some of the near-term actions that were identified in the IRP. So it is definitely informing some of the discussions and the decisions that we're having. And some of those discussions and committees that have been struck are dealing with how do we make sure we do high-value energy efficiency that helps with the peak demand.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Electric vehicles are certainly a topic of discussion these days in a lot of circles. I'm wondering what programs Efficiency Manitoba currently has to encourage EV sales or charging installations across the province.
Ms. Curlick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and you've asked a question that we get from virtually everybody. Right now, Efficiency Manitoba does not have a mandate for doing demand-side management in transportation fuels. That's one of the areas that we have been in discussions, whether it's Efficiency Manitoba that's best suited to do that. I think one of the areas that we could participate if we were to have a mandate expanded to demand response would be more so in the vehicle charging. So vehicle charging infrastructure is what's going to really impact the peak demand on the grid. And so we think we could play a really good role in making sure that customers are installing charging infrastructure that can be controlled to make sure that it's not hitting peak. But at present, we don't have a demand response mandate at this point. And I know Minister Schmidt, referenced earlier that we're talking through some of these things. So we'll continue those discussions and hopefully have an expanded mandate with maybe that being something included.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the answer. So can the CEO confirm that that Efficiency Manitoba has had discussions with the Minister's office in terms of incorporating EV programs into Efficiency Manitoba in the future?
Ms. Curlick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that would be probably discussions about EV programs. Sounds very, very specific. We've been having mandate discussions. Response or demand-side management in transportation fuels, more so on the mandate side.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer. What role does Efficiency Manitoba have in the Energy Advisor Training Program at Red River College?
Ms. Curlick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and thank you for that question. We're actually quite proud of that particular program. We worked very closely with Manitoba Environmental Industries Association as well as Red River College to help them develop the curriculum to develop the energy advisors in Manitoba. And this was in direct response to the launch of Greener Homes program from the federal government that came upon us rather quickly. And one of the concerns we were raising to the federal government at that time was that we had very few energy advisors in Manitoba operating. So with the Greener Homes program requiring both a pre and a post audit, we were very concerned that Manitobans were going to be left behind in accessing that program. So there was other partners too. I don't want to leave anybody out, but it was MIA, Red River College, Efficiency Manitoba, Prairie House Performance. I believe Sustainable Building Manitoba had a role in that as well. But so we basically helped develop the curriculum and then offered up incentives for targeted groups to go through that training and participate and become certified as an energy advisor.
Mr. Nisbet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So can the CEO tell the committee how many students have been trained and over what time frame and what the course length is?
Ms. Curlick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you're going into quite a few details, but I recall a number that there was, and I would have to get that corrected if I'm wrong, but roughly 40 Manitobans that had gone through and certified with that program. The unfortunate part of that was when Greener Homes announced that they were likely going to be closing for new applicants. Obviously, that made the curriculum and the course much less attractive. One of the items that we were kind of banking on for work for those energy advisors was a building code that would have been requiring there to be a performance-based measure to confirm compliance. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So there was less work for those energy advisors than originally hoped. So has an impact on how many entrants into the program end up going through. Because you want to have a job at the end of it.
Mr. Nesbitt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is the CEO saying that there's no shortage of energy advisors and auditors at this point, that that there's plenty in place to handle all of Efficiency Manitoba's programs?
Ms. Kurluk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think the first thing I will say is at present, we do not require an audit for our programs. So we have some programs that you might need some pre-approval, and that's just to protect the customer, to make sure that they're installing and going forward with an eligible retrofit. And there's other programs where we simply do a post-installation rebate. So our program really eliminates any barriers that there might be, such as the cost of an audit. So that's one part of it. The only program that we do actually have an energy audit required is for our new homes program, or the deep energy retrofit for new homes. And so right now, we've had sufficient capacity to operate those programs on behalf of us. But in terms of, you'd have to talk to the energy advisors to find out what the last 2 weeks of the Greener Homes Grant was like. But I'm sure there was a lot of demand for those folks during that period. And so, that's an evolving landscape very quickly, just due to the in and out of the federal government. So I couldn't comment specifically on whether we're at surplus now, or if people have left and found jobs, or if they're still happy in those roles finishing up the audits.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the CEO. Aki Energy was provided with $185,000 to train Indigenous people on ground source heat pump technology and installation in First Nations communities. Can the CEO tell us how many Indigenous Manitobans have been trained, and are they working?
Ms. Kurluk? Ms. Kurluk?
Looking for that specific answer, I will basically talk about how proud we are of that program. I mean, it's really a testament to combining energy efficiency and what's good for both affordability, the climate, but also reconciliation and making sure that there's employment that exists in the communities. And that's something that we've heard is an amazing benefit of that First Nations install. And the number that we have in terms of folks that have been trained is 45 First Nations community members that have been trained on installing and maintaining geothermal heat pumps. And I know for our projections for 23-24, we're looking to projecting to install 73 ground source heat pumps. I know that's a very specific number. But so I would suspect those folks would definitely continue to be working. But again, I can't comment specifically on everybody's personal circumstance and whether they're still working. But again, giving real good skills for the green economy for First Nations community members is something that we're really proud of.
Mr. Nisbet?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I certainly want to commend the CEO and Efficiency Manitoba on that initiative, and I think that having trained technology people in those communities is important. I live in a rural area, and again, having trained people close by is certainly important. So again, I commend you. Thank you very much.
Would you like to provide comments, Ms. Kurluk?
Well, thank you for that commitment. I think, and member states it really well. I don't think there's anyone that could argue with the benefits that have been created as a result of that program.
Mr. Panook?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask the CEO when it comes to Indigenous communities, when it comes to First Nations, do you get a lot of participation with I know with the provincial government, but also with the federal government? Because a lot of times the responsibility is for the feds, but we want to make sure that everything possibly that we work with all levels of government to make sure that we get the funding to make sure that they're successful.
Ms. Kurluk?
Yes, thank you for that question. And you've raised a challenge that I know is one of the challenges that one of our Energy Efficiency Advisory Group members has brought up, which is how do you coordinate the different pots of funding for different objectives. And so I know one of our managers that's responsible for both our income qualified program and our First Nations programs sits on, and it's a Machemi working group, and I'll have to look it up, but it's the, Manitoba Housing Capacity. I'm going to leave it at it's a cross-functional team of both federal government participants, CMHC and Efficiency Manitoba, and several others. And if you give me a second, I'll get you exactly where it is. But working with that group is trying to address that barrier of trying to make sure that First Nations are accessing the funds in the most simple way possible that meets everybody's objectives. And Chair, if you'll grant me leave for a second, I'm just going to have a look for this because I know I have the answer here somewhere.
Ms. Kurlik.
So the name of the organization that we work with is the Manitoba Indigenous Housing Capacity Enhancement and Mobilization Initiative. So I think we've been making some really good strides with that group to make sure that we're trying to make sure that energy efficiency and from the federal government's perspective, there's other things like indoor air quality, you know, improving the living conditions of the home that are their objectives, which also brings me to another initiative we have, which is called the Community-Driven Outcomes model, which is working through Raven Capital Indigenous Partners. And it's almost like a social impact bond where Raven secures different outcomes buyers to participate in the retrofit of a home. And we're going to be trialing both geothermal installs and deep energy retrofits in housing in a First Nation community. And we're an outcomes purchaser of the energy savings, of course, but there'll be other outcomes purchasers that are interested, say, in the economic benefits of employment in the community, or the healthy benefits of improving the air quality of a home. So by pooling all those outcomes buyers, we're able to do a lot more and fund a lot more of the retrofit, which is a great news story.
Mr. Panook.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the CEO for all that great information. And the other question I have is, how many First Nation communities are you involved with? Are they all throughout the whole province? Or are we looking at southern Manitoba also versus northern Manitoba? I think it's important that you know, we work together to make sure that everybody succeeds when it comes to the future. Reconciliation is important, and that's the question I have for the CEO, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurlik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we recognize that as well. And what I can say is that we definitely have contact with all 63 First Nations. So we in our efforts for reconciliation, we've basically done and created a specific work group that works solely on First Nations and delivering programs to First Nations, which we all understand, isolated communities aside, that there's other challenges with making sure programs get into the hands of these communities. So we've set up a work group that focuses on that. We have programs that are tailored and specific to that. And we will work with all First Nations communities. And I know that one of the programs that we have that's working directly with 11 First Nations communities throughout Manitoba, so not just in southern Manitoba, is our Indigenous Community Energy Efficiency Program, which is funding an advocate directly in the community to make sure that they're assisting community members in accessing Efficiency Manitoba programs. Efficiency Manitoba programs delivered to First Nations are different than what we would have here in the South, in that we're trying to train community members to go in and do some of the direct install pieces, and even train and help them do insulation in the homes. And so that's part of what we heard from communities, is that and each community sometimes has a different objective, and that's part of reconciliation as well, is that you're not going to say that this exact program is going to be delivered in all First Nations exactly as is, because each community has perhaps something different that they want to focus on. So, but definitely, we're definitely working with even northern communities.
Mr. Panook.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Another question I have now, if we're going to communities, is also municipalities. How many municipalities are in the programs? I know there's some energy efficiency plans that were also for examples of a city of Selkirk to a town of Hamiota constituency, and my constituent is the RM of Lauren municipality. That includes Notre Dame, Dolores, and also the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce. So how many, like, are you working with a lot of communities to making sure that everybody's on board when it comes to the efficiencies across the province?
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep, that's a great question, and yes, we work very closely. Association of Manitoba Municipalities is also on our Energy Efficiency Advisory Group. So through that contact, we do a lot of communication with elected officials and the AMM proper. And for the Community Energy Advocate Program that you mentioned there, I believe we're participating with 4 municipalities on that. And so we work very closely to make sure that those energy advocates have the tools, resources, and technical information that they need to help disperse our programs into their communities. And it's working very well. I don't know when our next intake will be. Okay, we're getting at when our next intake is. But I mean, bottom line, you know, I think we've all agreed we're under budget and we're starting to catch up on our energy savings. And so I would say that any municipality that's ever interested in talking with Efficiency Manitoba to put an energy advocate in place for their community, we would certainly not turn down that opportunity to partner.
Mr. Panook.
Yeah, thanks for the CEO for that great information. But also I want to look at when it comes to businesses, I'd say across the province, when it comes to efficiencies, we talked a lot about homeowners and what the savings are, and some of the goals that we have when it comes to, you know, geothermal. But like with businesses too, like that's kind of the organizations that employ a lot of people in our great province. The importance is also how many businesses have actually embraced any programs that you guys actually, in the initiatives that you have in Efficiencies Manitoba, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the commercial market itself makes up a huge component of our energy savings projections, and so yes, we participate and customers are participating. I think some of them are even highlighted in the annual report. Are participating in our programs in great numbers. I was at a conference a while back talking about multifamily buildings and the challenge of having multifamily buildings actually install energy efficiency. And I was sort of stunned by that because in Manitoba, in our experience, the multifamily industry participates heavily in our programs. So businesses are definitely a target for our program. You know, we even understand that amongst businesses, there's different types of businesses. So we've actually developed a small business program that really eliminates any of the barriers that a small business may face in trying to invest in energy efficiency. So we have a third-party contractor that goes to the site, has a look at what the opportunities are, and while they're looking at the opportunities, they install some low-cost, no-cost measures, and then they give them a report on what a deeper retrofit could be, and primarily it's been lighting. And we offer an enhanced rebate for those small customers because, you know, we know that in terms of economies of scale, you know, the lighting contractor may not be able to give as great of a price for a very small business than they can for a massive warehouse. So we sort of enhance our incentives so that they can get a little bit more money and help them get through the process of making that installation and realizing those energy savings.
Mr. Panook.
I'm going into that small business program. I guess we have that third party, and I believe it's Exofit. Is that the company that we're looking at? No, which?
Ms. Kurluk.
Yeah, the EcoFit is, yeah.
Mr. Panook.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the thing is, one of the concerns that I had with one of my constituents is that they're able to do that too, but at the same time, you know, one company is looking after all the province. Is that the most efficient way, Mr. Chair, to actually do the program, to making sure that, you know, one company looks after the whole province, like the cost of going to a certain communities, there's added costs to that. But we also have small business that can also do that too. in the communities. And I think that would be more efficient to actually look at allocating it to certain companies. Because again, these are small businesses, these are big businesses that we want to succeed in the province of Manitoba, but we're actually using an outside source to provide that program. So if there's something that we can look at, sort of using it as a secondary market to make it more efficient, to actually have that small business be able, like I say, electricians across the province be able to do that type of work.
Ms. Kurlik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and so EcoFit was a tendered contract. So we did put that contract out there. And what I can say that's been very beneficial about that particular contract and this particular program and work is that it actually has resulted in the creation of green jobs. So those are Manitobans, and so that would be less so on the electrician side, but more so on the advisors that are walking into the facility and doing the installs. So the other thing that EcoFit is able to do is secure pricing, like large bulk pricing for those low-cost, no-cost installations. So that helps keep the program cost-effective and then enable us to enhance, for example, the lighting retrofits and maintain the cost-effectiveness of the program through what they're able to secure in terms of pricing. But one of the things that EcoFit does do, and I'm not sure if your constituent would be aware of that, but I know that when they're working in remote areas, I think they are actually contracting local electricians, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah. So an opportunity for all to participate, and probably worth a reach out if there's, someone that's serving a community that you're aware of, that they could reach out and we could connect the two.
Emily Kahn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and recognize the time is almost at an end here. I just want to, before we go further, just to thank the CEO for 2 hours, 45 minutes, almost 3 hours of constant questions, and all by yourself with you know you got your team behind you, but you're on the front line. So I want to thank the CEO for answering the questions today. Question, relatively easier one from my point. The cumulative savings. So we had talked earlier about roughly the math I did. It was $14.2 million of savings in this annual report. Does the CEO have numbers of what the cumulative savings would be since Efficiency Manitoba came into existence? Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurlik?
So I do believe I have that answer, so I will grab it. But what I will say about the savings that are quoted in our annual report, and this is due to the nature of our energy savings target being in-year energy savings. So the numbers in the report on bill savings are in-year bill savings. So you're absolutely correct. Those will be bill savings that persist for as long as the energy efficiency measure is installed. So I'll have to do some math here, but like our first efficiency plan, $9.8 million in efficiency in bill savings. Our second year in operation, $13.7 million, and the final year, $14.2 million. But of course, that $9.8 million carries on for 2 years. The $13.7 million carries on for 2 years, and so on. And so as of today, if you wanted to, I'm looking over my shoulder for someone to do quick math, but I can do it. It's going to be like roughly in the $70 million range of ongoing bill savings for customers. If I've done that right, 10, 20. Pretty close.
Emily Kahn?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the CEO. That's it's a big, exciting number. If you want to maybe when you provide or undertake the other stuff, if we can get that just final number in year over year, if maybe the CEO can undertake for the annual reports year over year, just all of that, because it is a great number and it should be recognized for the hard work that Efficiency Manitoba is doing and the direction of this province going forward. I guess the same question now is for energy savings as well. So we have our cost savings. Does the the CEO have any numbers? And I know and again, in this annual report, there's reference to electric and gas and a third one in there. Does the CEO, same question, have those same numbers for the previous 3 annual reports as well? And if not, can we get an undertaking to provide that in the next couple of weeks? Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will endeavor to get that. And again, the member has raised an important point in that our savings are, our targets for savings are in year, but yes, they do have an impact on customers for as long as the measure is installed. And we will, yeah. Times 3 times 2 plus 1.
Yeah, or if you want to talk percent.
It was a lot easier than the math on 227.4 gigawatt hours in cumulative, if that's okay.
Emily Kahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I want to thank the CEO for providing that and getting the undertaking of the cost savings on energy savings in the next few weeks. So again, thank you for you and your staff for everything you're doing and going forward. And that'll conclude my questions. I'll pass it to my colleague, Emily Nesbitt.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the minister for being so candid in her comments today, and I know this is likely her first committee. It's my first committee in 7.5 years too, so I want to thank you for your responses. I want to thank the CEO and her staff for answering our questions today to the best of their abilities, and the undertakings to provide to couple undertakings I think to provide to this committee in the next couple of weeks would be appreciated. I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, and the clerk for your participation today. And again, I'm very proud of the work Efficiency Manitoba did in 22-23, and I have no reason to believe that work won't continue over the next year. Thank you.
Seeing no... Oh, sorry, Ms. Kurluk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to thank the committee as well. It's been the longest committee I've ever sat in, but they've been great questions, and appreciate that energy efficiency is a bipartisan issue and everybody cares about it, and as is our wish to protect the environment as well. So thank you everyone for participation.
Minister Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank my committee colleagues. I want to thank Mr. Khan and Mr. Nesbitt for their comments and echo them. I want to just thank and congratulate Ms. Kurluk and her staff for a great year in 2022-23, an excellent committee here today. I want to thank my committee colleagues for their thoughtful questions and for the opportunity to hear about the good work of Efficiency Manitoba. And I specifically want to thank my critic, Mr. Nesbitt, and I sincerely look forward to working with you in this coming fiscal year on issues surrounding Efficiency Manitoba and the environment and climate. And I think it's been a very productive meeting here today, and I thank all the committee members, including the chair.
Seeing no further questions, I will now put the question on the report. Shall the annual report of Efficiency Manitoba for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023 pass? The report is accordingly passed. The hour being 12:15, what is the will of the committee? The committee will rise. Thank you.